how has that changed your perspective on people? Because I've had a few of those similar experiences where I came in with a preconceived notion on what a
Yeah.
person was, who they were, what their beliefs were, and by structuring them myself, I found that I was doing a misservice to both myself and that person by prejudging.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, I did the same thing. And like, I've always been a very open person. Like I will straight up tell people like if I like them or if I don't. And it's not often I don't like people. Like I'm a very like, I enjoy like so many different like minds and being able to talk to different people. So, but I've just always been very forward and very like open about like stuff. So like whenever having that kind of change was like, man, really makes me like think. I'm like, I really gotta like be even more open and like relaxed with like, because like there you could catch one person on a bad day and they could literally be an angel and be amazing, but they had one bad day and that's all you saw. So you think this or this about them. But I also think that it's super healthy to kind of have those preconceived notions because it shows that you're still like a valid person in society who's trying to make a judgment about somebody. Now, just straight up judging somebody isn't great. And I think that the people who are like, they did something bad to me the first time I met them, I never want to like, I don't want to give them the time of day. It's like that. See, that I think is stupid. I think it's normal to have a preconceived notion. I think it's almost healthy because you're making an analysis of somebody. You're trying to understand them. You're trying to put in effort to know who they are or understand something about them. And then whenever you, like I said, when you make that first assumption, you're too rock solid. That's when you kill yourself. I think that you need to, if you have that preconceived notion, to then take time to be able to see if it's accurate or not, or to get like more in depth with it.
Yeah, I was on a podcast a couple of weeks ago and we were talking about prejudice, and
Mm-hmm.
my idea was that prejudice is inherent and we can't get rid of it at all, and prejudice is in that exact idea of judging someone before you actually meet them. And the example
Yeah.
that I gave of a appropriate prejudice was when I was growing up. I think I was getting to about 16 to 18, in that range, where at night I would just go for a walk on my own at night,
Mm-hmm.
and I loved walking around at night. It was
Yeah.
very quiet and that was just what I needed. And I realized over time, as I got older and therefore larger, was that girls would cross the street and then cross back after they'd passed me. And
Yeah.
I thought, well, that kind of sucked. I actually stopped walking at night because I felt so bad that I was scaring people. But I thought, well, that's an appropriate prejudice,
Yeah.
because women on average tend to be slightly more neurotic than men, and I think that that's a part of it, is that men are safer in general from other people just because of our physical stature. So I thought that was an appropriate prejudice. And I think that you're right, is that we literally need to have prejudice for people, because if we didn't, we wouldn't be able to operate efficiently enough to actually survive in the world.
Yeah, exactly. And that is a very good example because it's very accurate. And the girl probably means no harm by it. And if she were to see you, it would be
Mm-hmm.
totally normal or whatever, but it's just out of safety. It's the same thing. Like if you, to a really simple term, and this is much of an extreme, but if you had no experience in the real world and you did not make any type of prejudice or any type of an assumption, and you had seen a gunshot off and you see a guy with a gun pointed at you, it's a pretty safe bet to say he's probably going to shoot you. Let me get the
Yeah.
hell out of the way. Like that guy's dangerous. That is a bad man. Let me move. It's like I said, the most extreme form. But if you have none of that, like you're now not walking anymore. So like you said, but yeah, again, there's also that balance that comes in every single time you do anything, where it's like you need that prejudice, but you need to be able to, one, change from it if it's appropriate, and two, not over prejudice something. Like so many people get so locked in on that prejudice or whatever, that it's not an appropriate prejudice or not like good or healthy for society or anybody involved.
Mm-hmm. I think that prejudice has the potential consequence of turning ideological very quickly, where it's something
Yeah.
that is all encompassing of whatever group or issue that you're looking at. And I even experienced it the other day. I was in the Muay Thai gym, and this guy came in and he had a gun in a holster. And I'm a Canadian. I grew up in Canada. I've gone hunting. Like we had guns and stuff, but seeing someone in a closed vicinity with a firearm, an exposed firearm on his holster, and I have a prejudice of firearms because I've been exposed to US media, regardless of
Yeah.
what the statistics say about shootings and all of this
Yeah.
other stuff.
Yeah.
It's just this immediate reaction that I had where I felt myself get anxious, and I was like looking for exits, trying to figure out what I was
Yeah.
going to
Yeah.
do
Yeah.
next. And it was interesting because this guy just had this huge smile on his face, and anytime our instructor was talking, he was nodding, he had his arms crossed, and he was like, "Oh yeah, 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 yeah," and it was just this prejudice that, as you said, you have to be relatively fluid with your prejudice to be as effective as a prejudice can be, because you need to start somewhere and then be able to move fluidly throughout that opinion.
Yeah, and see, that's a very appropriate one. Like, you were from Canada, where it's not common to carry it. You had seen the news postings about all the stuff going on in the U.S., and now you're in the U.S. and you see a guy walk in with a gun. Like, 2 and 2 equals 4. So in
Yeah.
your anxious mind, it's like, okay, well, this guy's about to shoot up everybody. Like, common sense. Um, and like I said, I was in a military family, so I've had guns around our household my whole life, and I'm like, I mean, I'm not necessarily comfortable if some stranger walks in with a gun, but like, I understand it. And being from the U.S., and my grandfather had his license to carry, so he would carry around. So it was a little bit more common for me. But it's like you said, it's like, yeah, that wasn't the way that you were kind of shaped. So that's a fair prejudice that you're going to have to lay down for your own safety and own like simple knowledge of like, hey, this is probably not a great situation.